Welcome to the Apartment Investor Pro podcast, where we talk about how to be a more successful multifamily investor with a focus on using technology to boost your business. And now your host, Todd Heitner.
Welcome to the Apartment Investor Pro podcast. Our topic today is build, scale, and run a successful syndication business. My guest today is Ellie Perlman. Now, earlier in her career, she worked as a commercial real estate lawyer and then later as a high-end property manager, getting great experience in real estate investment. Today, she's the founder and CEO of the multifamily investment firm Blue Light Capital. She also leads a mentoring program helping multifamily syndicators to build and scale their businesses. That's the topic that we'll be discussing today. She's going to share tons of great tips, including how to build your syndication business from the ground up, what to focus on doing yourself versus what to outsource, and then some tips on hiring and firing. So let's get right into the interview. So thanks so much for joining me today, Ellie. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Todd. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to have you here. And so I thought today we'd talk about the business side of things with syndication, not the technical aspects of doing a syndication, but the business side of it. A lot of people are maybe coming from a background where they had a job, and so doing a syndication is kind of a new thing, like the business side of it. And then as you start to grow that and scale, that's a lot, for many people, uncharted waters. So I thought we'd ask you about that a little bit. So what would you say, like, where should people start with building their business?
Are you talking about building any business or specifically for syndication?
Well, let's start with any business, I guess. We'll do that first.
I would say, it's the beginning is always challenging because you want to understand first and foremost, what the business is and what you're trying to get and what the goals are. And I think starting from the end, starting from understanding what the goals are can really help understand what resources you need, how many people you need to hire or partner. And when you're coming from a W-2 background, it can be challenging because you don't always have enough money to hire a team. So how do you do that? That's one of the things that I've been dealing with when I started, syndicating. So, and I think it's a good question because even a syndication is a business first and foremost. And so first step would be to understand the goal. What are you trying to get? Are you trying to get just an additional income, in addition to your W-2 job, which I've seen a lot of syndicators, begin, or a lot of business owners begin this way, where they say, I like the security and the surety of, getting, this check every 2 weeks, but I want to do something else. But I can't just cut my, my income right now. So I'm going to do it on the side. And it does make sense on one hand. On the other hand, there's a limit to where your business, how fast you can grow and how much money you can make if you're dedicating, part of your time to building your business. So if you're willing to take the risk, I would say, let's do it. Everyone is in a different position in life when they think about starting a business. But the very first thing is to understand what is your goal. And when you understand the goal, okay, as I mentioned before, do I want to create an additional income? And in that case, maybe you don't need other people. You can do it, by yourself. Or do you want to grow and become, $1 million company, $1 billion company? And knowing that can really help you reverse engineer and understand, okay, what do I need to do today or this year in order to hit this goal in 10 years, for instance?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so do you recommend someone like fairly early on registering an entity like an LLC or something like that? Or like at what point do you think they should think about that?
You can create an LLC. It's not, it's not one of the first things that I would do because it takes time until you actually get, have any income. You can do that, and then, you can use an online service. It's not very expensive. The only caveat is that sometimes as you think about the business and as you understand the goals and the branding, you might want to rebrand it. So you can have an LLC, but then, you can update it as doing business as DBA, So if you have, for instance, a company called, High Performance LLC, but then you think that, wait a minute, I actually want to position, I want to create a different branding, then you can basically update the brand name. But it's not expensive. You can do it, especially if you're going to have an income right away, or if you want to present something, on your website or anywhere else that you go. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt, but I wouldn't focus too much on it.
Yeah, I can see where it kind of makes sense to think through things and be sure of kind of the direction you want to go maybe before taking that step, because you could end up doing a lot of work that you have to redo later if you change the direction. So yeah, that makes sense. And so what would you say some different elements of running a business that a syndicator should be aware of? Maybe some things that they're often get overlooked or maybe not thought about?
I think one of the things that new syndicators do is focus on the next deal and not focus on building this as a business. And what I mean by that is that when you begin, when you start, you can focus on, okay, I just need to get one deal. So I underwrite every deal. I also create my own content and, try to bring investors to my website. And I'm also going to schedule the meetings with them because I just want to get the next deal, and I just want to make sure that I have enough capital to close the deal. A different approach and a better approach, in my opinion, would be to say, this is the 6 months or the 12 months plan. I need to get someone to help me build my online presence, and I need someone to help, let's say, underwrite the deals. And I'm going to start making, building relationships with broker, and I'm going to be the one talking with investors, but I need those people around me to help me build that. And think about it as a company. What is the thing that I have to do that nobody else can do? Because writing an article, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people can. I can pay for someone to do that, and it's not expensive. Schedule meetings, run numbers. People can do that for me. The things that in my business that I cannot be replaced, or it's very hard to replace me, is the relationship part. So investors want to talk with the syndicators themselves. The brokers want to know who they're selling the property for too. So, basically finding, those areas where you want to focus and outsourcing or partnering. If you can pay people to do the work, you can find someone who can do that without the upfront pay for a piece of, of the equity. And so that's how you think about it as a business. And then every part of the business, create the process and automate it. So think, okay, what are, all the steps that are needed to be done to get this thing done. So for instance, how do I get a deal? I need to outsource, to go to website XYZ and outsource the deal. I need to underwrite it, then, do kind of a quick underwriting, then have a call with the seller, then talk with the PM. So write down, and that's what I did. I wrote down on a whiteboard, I wrote down every part of the process. And it's true for every business. You got to understand what are the different functions in the company, or, in whatever trade, whatever you do, and figure out where you want to position yourself and what you want to outsource, or like I said, hire or partner. And within each category, build the different steps from A to Z, from start to finish. So it's easier for anyone else who's not you to understand how to do things, and then try and automate it as much as you can by using softwares out there and tools and processes, so you can get a lot more done.
Yeah, that makes sense. I found too, like going through that process, creating a process helps you even while you're doing it, because you have to think through every step and then make sure things are done at the right time. And then even while you're doing it yourself, if you have a process to follow, it's not, you don't get into a situation and realize, oh, I should have had this done already and I don't have it done. And but then, like you said, you can easily pass that off to someone else, make it as simple as possible to just, get it off your plate and let somebody else focus on it. And so what would you suggest as far as like when to hire someone? Because like you said, there's kind of that challenge, that point where maybe there's not enough, it doesn't feel like there's enough income coming in to justify hiring someone, but at the same time, you need to be able to move the business forward. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. And you know what? I took a risk when I started, my company, and I said, who's the first hire? Where do I need help the most? And for me, it was on the admin side, just help me. I used to write my own articles at first, and I needed someone to help me post them on social media, circulate them on social media so it will grab investors' attention, schedule meetings with investors. And so that's my first hire was actually an admin. And I use Upwork, where you have people from either the US, you can hire them for $10 to $15 an hour, or if you're on a tighter budget, then you can hire people from the Philippines or India, and you can find someone for $5 an hour. How good they are, I don't know. Some of them are decent. So you can do either way, either hire locally or internationally, and you can say, hey, I am going to allocate 7 hours a week, and I'm going to pay someone $7. Let's say they're from the Philippines, or $10 an hour. So, $70 a week, it's not a huge budget. And so that's basically how you can start, hiring just the one thing you hate doing the most, and takes the most out of your time, because every minute I spent on scheduling, a call with investors, that was another minute I could look at another deal, or speak with someone that can help me, either bring capital, or by investing in my deals, or help me underwrite a deal, or look at a deal, or manage the asset, or do something else that brings a lot more value. Because for my business, it wasn't the best use of my time to do the administrative tasks. So that's one way of doing it. Another way, if you say, what, I absolutely have no money, which in syndication will be a little bit challenging, because just the down payment, you need to come up with a substantial amount. Well, not for the down payment right away, but you can raise money from investors for that, but just the hard money, which could be 25,000, could be 100,000, could be $200,000, as long as you're under contract. So you do need to have some money, but assuming you don't have money at all, you can basically find people and say, hey, can you, if you know how to underwrite, and I've seen it being done before, where you have one person who says, I can bring capital, I have investors, I have the connections, I have the online presence, whatever it is. I either don't like or don't know how to underwrite deals. And so the other guy would say, I'm really good at that. I know how to underwrite it. Let's team up, and then we can split whatever profits, I don't know, 50-50, 60-40, whatever it is. So you can find people who are able to do that. I've also seen structures where there were two partners or one partner, and they didn't like to underwrite. So they said, hey, Mr. Underwriter, why don't you underwrite deals for free for us? And in returns, when we close a deal, we're going to give you, I don't know, 2% or 3% of the general partnership, basically from whatever we're making. We're going to give you a small piece. And some people really like that. And it works. So money shouldn't, stop anyone from starting a business. There's always, a way to work around it. That's how startups, how they start. I mean, there's not a lot of money. And even if they raise money from VCs and from investors, they don't have enough to pay nice salaries, and they're still able to attract good talent. And they do that by making them feel that they have some sort of, meaning and excitement. They build excitement around a brand, and also they give them some equity. So people know, okay, I'm not taking a big check today, but I believe in this company, and this, the equity that I have can turn into a lot of money if we're successful.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think another challenge too that some of those people run into with hiring people is the idea that they could do it better in themselves. Like, I don't want somebody else to do it because I feel more comfortable doing it. I don't think it'll get done right if I pass it off. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? It's a trap that many business owners need to deal with, and it was something that I also had to struggle. I was struggling with at the beginning, even if it's true. Well, some part of it is true for two reasons. One, you're the most as a business owner, you are the most motivated person on the team many times. And also you think you do it best because you do it the way that it's built in your mind. And any deviation from that could look like it's not the best way of execution. You can do it, but you're going to be working in your business, not on your business. And at some point you have to let go. For me, the moment that I let go of that and I said, I'm okay with things being done 90% and not 100% the way that I envision them, they still have to be good. I mean, it doesn't mean that, it's not going to be quality, but it's not exactly how I want it. Then this is where my business actually took off. I mean, you just got to let people in your team, you got to give them the autonomy to do that. You have to free up your time. If you want to do, I read Robert Kiyosaki's, obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and then the 4 quadrants. And actually I like the 4 quadrants more because the book makes a distinction between the 4 quadrants, basically 4 types of occupations or states where people are. So the first one is a W-2, that's an employee. Then you have an employee, and then on the other side you have investor. And most people want to jump from employee to an investor, but you basically have employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. And usually you go from employee to business owner, or from employee to self-employed and then to investor, because the self-employment or the business ownership will generate enough cash so you can start investing. However, one of the things that resonated with me when I read the book is that, the author makes this distinction between business owner and self-employed. And he says he said that basically many people are getting confused between the two. They think that if, they're consultants or they're doing everything in the business, that they own a business. But if you go on vacation for 6 months and the business dies, then you don't own a business, you are self-employed. And it's very, very different. And you can scale when you understand the difference and when you move to the business owner, bucket. So it's the same thing, is applied here. Yeah, of course it will be perfect the way you want it, but you're always going to stay self-employed. You're never going to make the jump to a business owner.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so when you are hiring somebody and you're looking at people, obviously the skills they have are important, but what other things do you look for in people, like maybe traits and things that, and how does that compare to maybe them having the skills? Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. So I would say the number one thing that I'm looking for is a cultural fit, especially with a small company. One person without the right attitude that doesn't fit, basically, we can feel the waves of the mismatch very much, much more than a company with 200 employees and 1 or 2 that are not really a good fit. So cultural fit, it took me time to understand what I stand for in the business arena and who are the people that I need by my side. Hardworking, humble, taking ownership, have can-do attitude, not, yes men or yes women. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm hiring someone, because it has to match, because we're such a small company. And I've hired people before that did not fit the bill. And that was a mistake on my part, because I didn't put enough emphasis on the cultural fit. And naturally it didn't work because they're just, I don't think they were happy, and I don't think we were happy with them. Mm-hmm. And so it boils down to, before I even look at any skill or how smart you are or which school you came from, it's all about the fit. If you have the right spirit, if you have, the right values, otherwise it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I agree. Because the skills can be taught or learned or improved on, but if the personality doesn't fit, it really does create a problem in the business. So I think that's kind of an area too, where you want to have that defined, like what is important to me, like what are those core values that, so you have something to measure people against. And so
absolutely.
And so like you mentioned you hired someone before that wasn't a good fit. So how do you handle that situation? Like when and how do you let somebody go or maybe fire them when they aren't a good fit?
I always say be slow. Well, I actually did not say it. I read it somewhere. Be slow to hire and quick to fire. I wasn't doing that. I think sometimes I was definitely, quick to hire, which was my mistake. But when you see that other team members start feeling uncomfortable, when I get feedback from other team members, hey, that was our interaction with, so-and-so. and I feel that I don't enjoy working with that person, or their manager does not enjoy working with that person. I mean, I really try not to fire. I didn't fire a lot of people or let go, but in such a small company, there's no room to keep, someone who's not a good fit. And unfortunately, yeah, it does happen. It's a business, and it is what it is, but you don't really know when is the right time. There's no like formula. You just feel, if I'm, for me, if I'm not dreading, but if I feel uncomfortable working with them and I don't really want to meet with them, and I don't have that excitement or that connection, I think that's when it's time to let go.
Yeah, you kind of get that feeling that they're kind of dragging the whole team down.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And so do you have any tools or anything used to manage, let's say, like projects that are going on, and maybe even the team, or, what people are working on?
Yeah, so I like Airtable, which it's a free software, and it's kind of based on Excel spreadsheets, but it looks like a software. It's really great. So I use that to kind of track who's doing what. I'm not micromanaging, but just the high level projects of who's involved with which projects, and then we're basically using an OKR software as well, which is objectives and key results. And it's basically, these are the 5 or 4 top goals for the company this year. And okay, these are the objectives. These are the what. Now, each objective has multiple key results, which is how are we going to do that? It could be hiring another analyst. It could be partnering with other syndicators so we can, do more deals. It could also be, there are multiple ways of getting there. And so once we break it down, then we say, okay, in order, for instance, to hire another analyst, I need, somebody's help to find candidates to interview them, for instance. And so this way, everyone can see what are the goals for the company, and it brings everyone kind of, to be on the same page. And even if you're a solopreneur and you have no employees, just, having that exercise is very helpful. It keeps you focused. Before we use that, we used to try and do all kinds of projects at the same time. And now when we see it, we say, wait a minute, is it smart to continue working on something where, we can see what's the most important objectives for the company? So we need to focus on this. We're going to put everything else or some of the projects on hold because these are distractions. We'll get to them, but maybe, a quarter from now or 2 quarters from now. And just focusing on this has brought us tremendous, just amazing results.
Yeah. It definitely helps to have that focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And kind of maybe seems unrelated, but like another question is, how important do you think it is to have exercise and like taking care of your physical health when it comes to running a business?
Tremendously important. I mean, I try to run maybe twice a week. I used to go go to the gym or do Pilates or something every, I would say 4 to 5 times a week. It's hard to make the time, but it does keep you, focused. It lowers your stress levels because every business owner, it doesn't matter how well the business is going, you're still going to be stressed out unless you're superhuman. And in that case, I want to know what's your secret. But it's extremely important because when you're not taking care of your health, you're less focused, you're less productive, your team feels it. And then, what's the point? What's the point of really having a successful business if your health is deteriorating, if by the, when you're going to get to the age of 70, you won't be able to walk straight? I mean, what's the point of all of this? For me, it's allowing me to live a certain lifestyle where I have, time to spend with the people that I love, that I can take trips, I don't have to worry about the next check, where it's coming from, and, don't have that, discomfort. And health is a big part of it. So if you do all that, you can be the richest person in the world and your health is not going to be great. And, for me, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. You're not going to enjoy it. So yeah, yeah. Yeah. I know I found that to be true too. Like having some consistent exercise helps you be more, I found it helps me to be a lot more productive. I get a lot more done.
Yeah.
Energy, which, in the long run, you're going to get more done. So
Yep.
Doesn't make sense to sacrifice that for, short term, getting some,
Very true.
yeah. So maybe we could shift a little bit and talk about the brand side of, building a brand with a business. We probably all heard people talk about building a brand, but what does that mean to you? Or like, how would you define building a brand?
It's a very, very good question. I think building a brand for me is basically how my business and I'm specifically being perceived by other people. And there are multiple ways of doing that. Some of them is kind of reiterating your values over and over in different methods. And, it could be, for me, it's, for instance, I'm very conservative. So I'm going to say that to investors when I'm speaking with them. Some of the blog posts that I'm basically circulating on social media, that I circulate, sorry, on social media, talk about how to invest conservatively. It's something I talk about on, social media and on podcasts. So that's kind of part of branding. And I think it's also making sure that people understand who you are and your story. If you're comfortable sharing, I think it's a big part of branding. It's not just a fancy logo and amazing, video clips and, ads, very, expensive ads running. This is not what I see as branding. This is maybe marketing, but branding, maybe marketing is kind of, look at us, this is what we do. And branding is, this is who we are. So very, very two different things. So that's what I see as branding. That's why, my website has my I post my personal story. So I came from nothing, and I was struggling as a kid without, growing up to a poor family, and cleaning synagogues when I was, very little, just to help my parents make a living. So this is part of who I am. This is part of my brand, So that's how I think about branding.
Yeah. So who you are, and then kind of weaving that into maybe every interaction really in some way that people have with
Yeah.
your business. Yeah. So the content and all of that. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And so at what point do you think people should start thinking about their brand?
From the beginning, but I have to say that it takes time to find your voice, because I think that your voice should be your branding. It took me time to crystallize and understand exactly what I want to present. I had a story, and people say you have a very interesting, story, but I didn't make the connection between that and my brand. I was conservative in nature because I used to be a lawyer in my past life, but it took me time to understand that, being conservative is part of my branding. It's part of who I am as an investor. It takes time to find your voice, but I would say start working on your branding right away, because you can work the changes into the branding. Don't wait until you understand exactly what you stand for, because it will evolve, and you need to play around with it to get some feedback and see what works and what doesn't work. But yeah, pretty early on, because you want to set yourself apart, almost in every industry. There are a lot of other competitors, and it's a little bit tight. So standing out, that's what branding helps you do. And it's about figuring out what's interesting or unique about you, your skills, the way you view the world. It could be an interesting life story. It could be the fact that, maybe you used to be, I don't know, a ballerina or a soccer player or anything, out of the ordinary. Maybe I don't know. It could be many other things that people can actually relate to. Find that. And if you don't have anything, very interesting hobbies or background, it could be maybe the way you view the world. Maybe you see it very differently, and a lot of people can relate to that. So just, it's a process to find your voice, but as long as you give yourself the ability to be vulnerable and to be out there, put yourself out there, and experiment with marketing, with different platforms and how to present who you think you are. I would say that that's the way to go.
Yeah, that makes sense, because otherwise, if you just are super generic with everything, then there's nothing for people to remember. But when they have
Yeah,
something about you that they remember, they're like, oh yeah, that's the person that does this, or
exactly.
yeah, so it helps people, yeah, stick in their mind. Great. And so then maybe we could also shift a little bit toward the like time management and automation. We touched on that a little bit earlier, but sometimes people are coming from a background where somebody else set their schedule for them, a job, for example, or maybe they're getting into and they realize that they need a more effective strategy for managing their time to get everything done. Do you have any suggestions for effectively managing time? Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor. When we return, Ellie talks about business management, how to manage stress, and she explains the subtle differences between marketing and branding. So stay tuned for that. Cashflow Portal helps you accelerate capital raising and connect with investors. Use their software for free until you close your first deal. No credit card required, no strings attached, just sign up and start raising capital. Go to cashflowportal.com and tell them you're coming from Apartment Investor Pro to get an additional 3 months free. With Cashflow Portal, you get equity raising, distribution calculator, co-sponsor invitation, and a lot more. Remember, go to cashflowportal.com and mention you heard about them from Apartment Investor Pro and get 3 months free. Do you have any suggestions for effectively managing time?
Yeah. One of the things that I've done, and I learned it from Gary Keller, the founder of Keller Williams. He wrote a great book called The One Thing. So if you're out there, just go get the book because it's amazing. But basically the bottom line is, in order to grow and to manage your time better, you got to focus on what really matters. So take the 3 or 4 hours of the day. I used to block them and work only on the things that I knew that were instrumental to my business, to my growth. So basically, you kind of got to ask yourself, what is the one thing that by doing it, everything else is easier, or, I can basically eliminate, many other tasks that I have. And so for me, for instance, the answer was underwriting deals. It took me so much time, and I spent all my time on it. I didn't have time to speak with investors. I didn't have time to really look at other deals on a strategic level. And so this is the one thing that I focused on. At first, I would only underwrite myself, which was a good exercise. And then I realized, okay, I need to find someone who can do it more effectively. And then the shift was, let's find someone who can underwrite. And so that's what this whole thinking process was helping me understand. So, and then it changes. And then it was, okay, the main focus is to find the next deal. Now, what do I do? So in the first 3 or 4 hours in the day, I would call brokers, fly out to, Atlanta, for instance, and to Dallas to see the properties. And so I devoted a lot of time to basically not run the numbers, but review it with my underwriter, but build relationships with brokers so I can bring more deals. And so just blocking the time in the morning was very helpful for me, because it forced me to focus on the most important things that could actually bring my business to the next level.
And so do you, like during that time, do you kind of block out other things like email and your text messages and that kind of stuff?
I wish I did. This is, very hard for me to do. I know that some people do. If they can do it, that's great. I didn't do it, but I didn't have, kind of a running, I do have a to-do list every day. I'm looking at it right now. I have about 7 or 8 different things I need to get, I need to do. But if I don't start doing them, and, if I don't start answering emails in those 4 or 3 hours, it's still coming in. I want to know if there's an emergency, but I don't reply to them. I just focus on what I need to focus on. That was very helpful for me.
Yeah. I can see where it helps to do the most important thing first in the day, because it's pretty easy if you don't, if you put it off later in the day, it just doesn't get done. A lot of times it gets put off till tomorrow and then the next day. So yeah, it's good advice. And do you have any advice about like working from home versus maybe working from an office or something like that? Renting an office space?
I did both. It really depends on your setup. I mean, I work well in an office and also from my house. I like to diversify in kind of my surroundings. So I like to go to coffee shops every once in a while to just get out of the house. But even before COVID, I used to kind of combine working from home and working from my office. So, many times in my business, many times you're on the phone. So just being in an office and interrupting everyone is not the best thing to do. And most of my team is remote anyways. So, it doesn't matter for me what one way or the other. I know that some of my employees have a noise canceling headphones so they can stay focused. I don't have a lot of distractions at home. So, it just, for me, it works great.
Yeah, I can relate to what you said about having that variety, like having, some days where you maybe work at home or the office, and
Yeah.
then some you go to a coffee shop or something. I've found that
Yeah.
because you're there for a certain purpose, like it helps you to kind of stay focused on that, and you don't have the, whatever other distractions you might normally have. So yeah, good. And you kind of touched on this earlier, but about downtime, how important do you think it is to have some downtime when you're, where you can just completely step away from the business for periods of time?
Very hard to actually, not very hard to find the time. If you're your own boss, you can say, hey, it's 7 p.m. I'm going to stop working for like an hour, get dinner, and then maybe go back to it. Technically, it's not challenging, but when you're there, just making sure that you are emotionally available to enjoy the downtime. I think that's the main challenge for most business owners, because I find myself, on vacation or having dinner or whatever I do, still consumed by the business, still thinking about the business, still thinking about the one thing I need to do tomorrow, the email I forgot to send, or anything else. And it's hard because when you have a business, I mean, the way that W-2s are looking at business owners is that they're making money, they have, they have control over their time, and they can do whatever they want. Technically, it's true, but I can tell that I'm the most demanding boss that I've ever had. And I'm working the hardest that I've ever worked in my whole life, period. Sometimes I work until 1, 2 a.m. Sometimes I work until midnight. Sometimes just until, 7 or 8 p.m. And it doesn't feel like work. I like it. I feel, it's invigorating and exciting, but then sometimes it's also, it takes a lot out of you. So finding the downtime, that's not the issue. But when I'm doing things other than work, I'm still thinking about work. So it's always in the back of your mind. Even when you try to not think about it, it's very, very hard to completely erase it. When you were W-2, when I was a W-2, I got into my car at 4 or 5 p.m. It was a tech company, so work was not very hard, at least not for me. Got into my car at 4 p.m. By 5, let's say I was home. I live in LA, so it was an hour drive. And I was free. I was really free because I didn't think about anything. I didn't bring work with me. There were other things that I didn't like about it, but this is the main thing, that kind of the main difference between W-2 and a business owner. When you're a business owner, you can find all the time in the world. The big issue is, are you emotionally available? And this is the thing that I'm still working on. So
Yeah, that's challenging for sure. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people don't recognize when they think that they want to work for themselves. They don't realize how attached they're going to be to the business and how much they're going to be thinking about it. You don't clock out really. So, are there any tools that you use for managing your time, or maybe your?
Not really, actually.
Okay.
No.
Or maybe like calendar or to-do list or anything like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, they're mainly not managing my time, but they help me figure out what I need to do during the day. But yeah, of course, I mean, you have calendars, and I have to block actually an hour, which I don't take the full hour, but during lunchtime, because I have investors that basically register, they sign up for, they book a call with me. And if I don't block parts of the days, it's just going to be back to back to back meetings. Sometimes I speak in a week with 15 or 20 new investors, and it really gets overwhelming. So I'm trying to kind of block some time, either for myself or to do things. So yeah, I mean, calendar is one of the things I'm using. And I have my to-do list, which I like. I'm very tech savvy, but I like to actually write down the things I need to do, because it's very satisfying to,
Cross it off.
erase. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's very, very satisfying. You feel very accomplished. So
Yeah, sure. Okay, good. And then maybe we could talk briefly about automation. What kind of things do you try to automate in your business?
everything. I'm automating the, setting up in scheduling calls with investors. So the moment they send out an email, if they go to my website, there's a form there where they leave information about themselves, and then basically we ask them to schedule a meeting with me. And if they don't, then we reach out to them, but we're automating that process. We're automating also the underwriting. So when we're analyzing deals, I'm using Airtable, as I mentioned. So when there are 3 or 4 people involved in that process, so when there's a deal coming in, being added to the pipeline, then player number 1 makes, his or her move. They're done. They mark it to the next guy so you can see the different stages of the deal. So each person knows when they should start, working on a deal. So we're trying to basically automate, pretty much everything.
And so what kind of tools do you use for doing that? Like connecting different things together?
So Airtable is one of them. We're also using a CRM system that automates, a lot of the interactions with our investors. If we send an email to everyone with kind of a recap of everything that I've posted on social media and all the blog posts and maybe new deals that we have, that's one thing. I think basically the CRM and Airtable are the main automation tools that we have.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, those are great suggestions. Do you have any other tips about either building, scaling, or running a syndication business? Any final thoughts?
I would say, don't be afraid to invest at least some money in building your company. I think it's very, we're used to think that, investing a lot of money in college, nobody is questioning that, and everyone is happy, to take loans and to acquire higher education. And listen, I get it. I have 3 degrees. I have 2 law degrees and an MBA. I've invested a lot in my education, but I didn't think twice because I knew it would be a good investment. But then when people get to the point where they need to take $10 or $5 or $2,000 and invest in their growing their business, there's a lot of hesitation there. And, I would say, just assuming you have a little bit of money to invest, feel free to bet on yourself. This is probably going to add to your bottom line a lot more than $100,000 fancy degree or $50,000, degree. So, that's kind of, that's at least how I see things. And I wish more people would see it, would see it the same way. But I think when it comes to investing in you and your business, I feel people say, I want to make sure this money is not going to go to waste, because if I'm successful, then yeah, I have no problem. If I know I'll succeed, I have no problem investing this money. But nobody promised you to get a job after you, get out of college. And yet you took the risk, nevertheless. So why not take the risk again? I mean, what's the difference really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, great advice. Thank you. And so what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you then?
So you can go to my website, ellieperlman.com, and Ellie is ELLIE. There's a lot of information about investing in real estate. They can download our free guide, or if they want to invest with me, they can, leave their information there. And they can also, leave kind of a generic message. I will go to my team's inbox. But that's, these are, I think, the best ways to connect with me.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you sharing your expertise on that. And I'm sure it'll really benefit a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd. It was great being here today.
We've put together some of the best tools to help get your business set up properly. You'll find things like where to hire people, where to get your logo created, where you can get your business email set up, project management tools, team communication tools, and much more. So whether you're just starting out or you're trying to take your business to the next level, you'll want to grab a free copy of the Syndication Business Toolbox. Grab yours today by going to apartmentinvestorpro.com/business toolbox. Again, that's apartmentinvestorpro.com/business toolbox. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Apartment Investor Pro podcast. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Also, visit our website at apartmentinvestorpro.com and connect with us.